Good afternoon, everyone, and hello, LinkedIn audience. Really excited to chat with you all today. We're going to be talking all things CPQ here. A topic that's come up for us recently here is configure price quote. It's all the rage. And today we're joined by Keith Rapkin, president of PandaDoc, to cover some of those solutions. So Keith, we'll get into it here in a second. I just kind of want to frame it a bit for our audience. Something we see here at Aptitude is this concept of creating, managing, and signing documents. It's often kind of a weak link for revenue teams. Folks are getting caught up in manual workflows or the proposals. Contracts take too long. And today we're hoping to kind of strip some of that away and kind of learn from you and your experience and what you're seeing in the ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to talk about it. It's one of my favorite topics.
Love to hear it. So let's start with something that we hear all the time here. Our document process is where everything slows down, whether that's proposals or quotes, contracts getting lost in email, pending approvals, version drift. This seems to be a real choking point for GTM motions. What can you share about that for us?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's one of the ways that PandaDoc has helped 67,000 customers get value with our solution. What we see typically is that people have legacy workflows. Typically, they start with their CRM, the data comes in, and then they manually create things out of that CRM and paste them into a Google slide, or they create a manual PDF off like some Word template they have. Of course, HubSpot does have a quoting solution, and that can provide some basics. But what happens is a lot of times go-to-market teams need a level of complexity, or they need an ability to automate. And any good salesperson knows the first time you put a proposal in front of a customer, they're probably not going to sign it. So you need to alter that. You need to edit it. And usually for decent sized deals, you need some level of approval. So having a system that builds all of that together and makes it really easy to use and strips all the complexity away such that you can quote, get the contract signed, and get it approved, like without ever leaving a single system, is super powerful. And that's what we try to do. And again, we've helped so many customers with this. We've seen customers who use the solution get 40% of the time they spend back from quoting.
It's significant. Another thing that we've been hearing a little bit come up lately, maybe you're seeing it as well, is compliance teams. Hey, this sales team or inside sales is out of compliance with SOP. And maybe, I'm sure they're doing the best they can here. And I think just, as an executive, it feels like a big risk for an audit, right?
It's a big risk. Compliance is a big deal. And I think a downstream impact, maybe not quite as bad as compliance, is error rates, right? If you don't have the systems in place that have rules around what quotes need to be or who needs to approve those, then you're likely to send out the wrong quote. And that can lead to revenue loss. That can lead to a bad customer experience if you've got to revoke the quote that the customer's already agreed to. So how do you build those systems in place? And ideally, it's not manually checking every single quote that goes out. You should have it built into the platform that you're using.
Right. Yeah, let's double click on the revenue loss. As CROs, former CRO, current CRO, that's important to me. I think most teams we talk to, they don't think about their document workflows as a leak. It's just not something that is often brought up as a pain point. But what's not measured is things like stalled deals. The renewal cycles taking too long. Deals are kind of, falling apart at the finish line. We know time kills deals. And if you look back at it and really we're doing some more kind of lessons learned, sometimes you can point to the document process as broken. The paper process just was not as efficient as it could be. And so in your experience, what's the real revenue impact to teams when these kind of things aren't streamlined?
I think it's hilarious because we always talk about speed to lead, right? How often have you heard speed to lead? And yet speed to quote is never talked about. It's very strange because, as you said, time kills all deals. Mm-hmm. So if you are very fast at responding to leads and you have a great conversation, but then you're left waiting, you're making your customer wait to get their quote. Number one, you're letting competitors slide in at the last minute. You're giving incumbents more time to keep the customer. That honestly is the single biggest revenue loss, is while you've got them hot, you're taking your time to quote, you're taking your time to get approval from deal desk, and the incumbent is coming right back and winning them over and running out the clock. So that is a huge revenue loss. And I think the other piece is back to the speed is if your reps are spending time on quoting they're not spending their time prospecting.
Correct.
You're actually reducing your pipeline. One of the best things we have in our solution, and one of the things I look at almost every hour of the end of the month, which it is how many people have opened our PandaDocs. And being able to see which deals are close to the line allows me to manage the pipeline more effectively. And as a sales leader, your time is valuable, your time is short. Which are the deals that you're going to spend your time personally making sure get across the line?
Right.
You can sort it by deal size, but really you want to have an overlay of intelligence that says the deals that are closest to actually being closed because they have hot interest as the person is looking at the quote are the ones where I want to commit and double down on.
Totally agree. I mean, it's not uncommon for sales teams to have a deal stage as something like proposal sent, right? Or contract review. That's where deals die. It's certainly where they stall, right? And so many teams lack visibility into what happens after I send it. Well, I sent them the contract. Who has seen it? Where is it at? Where is it in the approval process? What needs to close it? And I mean, even in our team, on a smaller scale, I see deals sit in that stage longer than I would like. And anything we do to get clarity in that visibility, I think is really impactful.
And depending on the size of the company and how well they're integrating PandaDoc with their CRM, we see close rates go up from customers who are using our proposal or CPQ tool. And I think that's, real indication. When I break down how's my sales team doing, of course, I'm looking at pipe gen, but then I'm looking at close rate and, of course, the dollar amount of the contract. Sure. And so if I can take that close rate up as one of those three levers, that becomes a really powerful tool to minimize revenue loss or maximize the gain of what I already have in my pipeline.
For sure. I monitored Slack closely for our PandaDoc updates. Who's viewing it? Let me see document activity. Very much in tune with that particular channel. Cool. Let's talk about a little bit what happens when teams are doing this maybe incorrectly or kind of have more of a DIY solution. It seems like when we're digging into those document overhaul type projects, the first thing we see is, someone tried to build something. Maybe it was the right thing at the time. There's usually a reason things are configured, but maybe it lacks structure or kind of the process discipline we would like to see. And it's things are built because out of necessity, right, and not in line with best practice. And so, where do you see teams fall short when they try to fix workflows on their own?
I think a lot of times, and this is a double-edged sword for me saying it because, of course, I want people to buy PandaDoc, but I think people jump to the solution without fully understanding what they're trying to solve and what will work best for their team. And at PandaDoc, that's a big reason why we're huge fans of working with you all at Aptitude Aid and other partners, because you take the time to actually understand what the workflow is, how it will be ideal, and how you should solve it. And ultimately, I hope you are recommending PandaDoc because it's a great solution, but it may not be the right thing for that customer. And so I think, again, it's very easy to fall into the trap of like big shiny object. This tool looks so awesome. Let me jump to it without understanding what do you actually want to solve first. And so I think the most important thing is to understand what is the actual gap you're trying to solve. We just talked about, is it pipeline visibility? Is it increasing the close rate? Is it compliance? Is it errors? Make sure you pick the top two things you want to solve for, choose the right solution for that, and then implement it in a way that is really natural for your sales team and your RevOps team. And I think that's where it really falls apart is people jump to tools, typically, especially CPQ tools that are very complex, very hard to use. And maybe they satisfy the compliance element, but they actually make it much harder to sell with. And, we've built our solution to try to mitigate that, make it easy to sell. But you've got to make sure you're thinking through the whole picture instead of just like, hey, I'm the RevOps team, I'm going to solve this compliance and error handling without thinking about the seller experience.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good call out for the seller experience there. We want good adoption. We want the team to be excited about using it. And as a seller, feel like it's helping me close deals. An area that we've seen kind of related to that is this concept of hidden approvals, right? And so there's an approval process and everyone can articulate it to us, but then it's something like, oh, well, yeah, also I need to send it to Keith for a final approval. Okay, like notice he's not in your approval process. Well, yeah, he prefers or she prefers we email it to him or Slack it to them or whatever. And so there's actually approvals, even though there is an approval process in place, or maybe even a CPQ solution in place, when things are overbuilt or too complex or maybe too big of a CPQ solution, we see approvals actually be taken offline, which kind of defeats the whole purpose, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, you want the solution that is minimizing the time you spent, reducing your what we just called that quote to close time, and you're not going to do that if you have a shadow approval process.
Right. One of the first questions that I get when we're talking about PandaDoc is like, how is that fundamentally different or better than using, maybe your CRM's built-in tools or just like a basic PDF workflow in like an Adobe or something like that?
Yeah, so I think from there's a complexity continuum. And when you think about the sort of simple end of like a standard PDF or maybe your built-in tool in your CRM, you are getting some basic functionality. Like you can absolutely send a proposal, but where it falls apart is I think oftentimes in the tracking. There's like we were talking about, you get the Slack message of someone opened the PandaDoc.
Yeah.
I can see exactly how much time somebody spent on the page and which page. So if they spent a lot of time on the pricing page, that means I've got one that I probably need to lean into as the president and try to close personally. That's a really powerful angle. The imagery is the second one. Companies invest so much in their brand, and yet the most important document that they put in front of their customers, the order form or the quote,
Yeah.
doesn't reflect the value that you've talked about. And
All the
how
time.
many times,
All the time.
right? And how many times do you actually see those documents get passed around, right? Like I know within my team, if somebody is getting pitched a CMS for the web and it goes to my VP of marketing, she's sending me, the last two companies that are presenting and
Right.
what their quotes look like. And I haven't been in all those conversations. This is their time to sell me on what value they provide and offer. And so having a solution that can be more dynamic and can fit the needs and tell your branding story is really powerful. And that's why, again, we see close rates go up with something like PandaDoc. And then I would say, a built-in CRM probably has this, but a two-way sync. A lot of times people are using a Word doc, an email, a Google Drive doc. It has no two-way sync. So you're pasting information in and you have to copy it back into your CRM. That's time your rep is spending away from customers and not valuable.
Right. Yeah. Anything we do to reduce those non-selling motions is literally just cost savings. If you could just kind of shamelessly plug for me here a couple of kind of the key features about PandaDoc CPQ that are pretty interesting. I mean, obviously, as HubSpot partners, one of our favorites is it's native in HubSpot. I mean, your reps and teams and procurement teams could be working directly in the CRM, and it's super seamless. That's what we like most about it. What are a couple other key features that differentiate your offering?
Yeah, that's a huge one. We spent a lot of time making sure it was completely native. I mean, I want my reps to have the easiest adoption they can. And if it's native into the CRM, which is the tool they're spending the most time in, that's extremely powerful. I would say another one is time to value, right? CPQ for more complex use cases takes a long time to set up. And where we've really tried to build our solution is something that's very flexible and can be stood up in a much shorter time than some of the competitors who are out there. So that's number two. I would say number three is an all-in-one solution. So with other CPQ solutions, you have to buy the CPQ, you have to buy an e-signature tool, and then you still don't have a proposal or doc gen element.
Sure.
And PandaDoc rolls it all into one. So you've got that single tool that goes end to end. And then I would say, the complexity of the quoting is really powerful. So again, maybe at some of the smaller end, you don't have this ability to manage complex discounts and things like that. And so we've thought about ease of use, speed to value, all in one solution, and then this complexity angle and how we solve for complex quoting to make sure we've got the best tool in the market.
Yeah, those are all great solves. I think another thing related to that, you said it, but to double down on it, something we like about your offering there in CPQ is like, you don't need to be a rocket science to figure out. I think it's a good one size fits most use cases. If your use cases are like very complex, maybe there's better tools there. But I think a challenge we see in evaluating CPQ solutions with our clients is sometimes the setup and configuration is very technical, very complex. Like, we almost need a developer on standby to build out the business rules and stuff like that. And the fact that we can do it directly in the interface, I think makes it just a lot easier to get stood up and running, like you said there, and time to value. The last one we'll have time for here today, Keith. And selfishly, it's a bit about your partner strategy here. But even the best CPQ or CRM or map tools, need the right hands to kind of really unlock value, get it set up, and the configuration. Getting that right is really half the battle. When your clients are adopting PandaDoc, how does strategy and integration, like what role does having the right partner provide for your teams?
Yeah, I think we just talked about time to value, and partners provide that. You guys have implemented so many instances of PandaDoc. You understand the nuances of CPQ and how to set it up. And again, we built it in a way that we do intend for teams to be able to set it up on their own. But with a partner, you can get that time to value faster. And so it becomes this really powerful unlock for companies to use someone like Aptitude 8, because they can now get stood up and get all those benefits, an all-in-one solution, which probably saves you cost from a software side. You get better close rate, you get reduction in errors, you eliminate that shadow approval process. That gets your reps back to spending time with customers and prospecting. So you get all those benefits faster, and you've got someone who really understands your business and can customize it. So you don't have to go and like tweak it on a quarterly basis when you find out, oh yeah, I got it 80% right on my own, but now I got to adjust it another 20%.
Right. All good things, and appreciate the kind words. What advice, Keith, would you have for revenue leaders out there who have identified, hey, maybe I've got a problem here, but not sure how to get internal alignment to kind of roll out a CPQ solution or explore like maybe some of PandaDoc's offerings?
I always think it comes back to that ROI. So, how much would a higher close rate be worth to you? How much would getting RevOps time to work on actual analysis of what drives your business instead of handling random deal desk shadow approval processes or errors that went out in quoting be worth, right? That's real revenue lift.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can quantify that, and it's pretty easy because you can expect a higher close rate because you've got better imagery, you've got info into who's looking at your proposal, and you've got quotes that are much more reflective of your business, and your time to quote gets better, then suddenly you've got this revenue number and you can compare it to what the cost is to buy PandaDoc and implement it. And what we see time and again is that revenue uplift relative to the amount you're going to spend is absolutely worth it.
Right. Sure. I mean, easy to make that investment. We look at like a 10x return on a lot of our software investments, and that could be one deal truly for us. And we do have time for one more, I'm being told, so that's good. Kind of hand it to you here, Keith, to close us out here. But just as a president, as a former CRO, and a leader who's scaled PandaDoc to its current state, been great to watch you execute your vision over the years, sir. What are you most excited about just in the future of document automation, and like how can GTM teams prepare for maybe the future ahead?
Yeah, so I think we are doubling down on ease of use. That is the number one thing that PandaDoc is doing. How do we make it easier for you to quote, get that quote signed, get updated on renewals? And we see a big role for AI here, but I don't want to overpromise on AI. It starts with understanding how you work and making sure that we make it easier to do those things. We're making it easier to build these workflows in the product. We're making the CPQ more powerful, but less complex. And that is really our superpower. We'll also double down on that all-in-one vision. So I talked about eSign, DocGen, CPQ all together. We will give you more intelligence and ability to search your contracts and agreements to surface information that's valuable. Those are where we're investing, all in one and easy to use.
I think those are probably the right places, place to be there. And I also appreciate, we're not overselling AI here. It will be there in the right places and have confidence there, but it's not a silver bullet, right? Well, Keith, thank you so much. This has been my pleasure to chat with you today. I appreciate the insights you brought for us. If anyone out there is, having issues with document approvals, with their processes, interested in exploring CPQ for your business, here at Aptitude, we are big fans of PandaDoc and encourage you to take a look there. And also want to call out, this is part of a 4-part series we are doing on Configure Price Quote for GTM teams. Thanks all.